don't usually believe in ghost stories. I grew up on a farm, surrounded by fields and silence can make your imagination play cruel tricks. But what happened at the old corn maze on the edge of town wasn't a trick. It wasn't just a story passed down to keep kids out of the fields. It was real, and I'm the only one left to tell it. The maze had been there as long as I could remember, an annual attraction just outside the town limits, carved into the endless cornfield owned by the Holloway family. Every fall, locals and tourists came for hay rides, pumpkin carving, caramel apples, and the main event, the haunted maze. But this year, things were different. It started with the flyer. Someone slid it under my door one night in early October. No return address, no business name, just a plain sheet of black paper with white ink and a strange symbol etched at the top, a spiral made of tiny stick figures, each one turned inward. Beneath it, in block letters, "One night only. The true maze opens. October 31st. After midnight. Entry is free. Exit is not guaranteed." I thought it was a joke at first, but when I showed it to my friend Laura the next morning, she turned pale. "They've used that symbol before," she whispered. "The spiral of the lost." I laughed, because that's what you do when something unsettles you. But she didn't laugh back. She told me the legend about the original maze in the 1930s, when the Holloway family opened it for the first time. Back then, 13 people walked in on Halloween night. Only one came out. He was found wandering a mile from the farm, barefoot, his fingernails torn off, his eyes wide and blank. He never spoke again. The story became a local myth. Kids dared each other to sneak into the maze at night. I did it once when I was 15, just a few steps in. The silence inside wasn't like normal silence, it was too still, heavy, like the air itself was waiting. But this year's maze wasn't supposed to open until October 30th, and even then, it would be a family attraction. Nothing like this black invitation suggested. I should have thrown it away. But when midnight on Halloween came, I found myself driving toward the Holloway cornfields. The parking lot was empty except for a single pickup truck, its lights off, engine cold. The maze entrance was unlit, except for a lantern hanging from a wooden arch, its glass cracked, swaying in the breeze. The rows of corn loomed tall and thick, like a living wall. And there were voices inside. Whispers, soft at first, then clearer the closer I got. They're coming back this time. The maze remembers. Then a woman's voice behind me. "You got the invitation too?" I spun around. A young woman in a leather jacket stood at the edge of the field. Her name was Cass. She held up the same black flyer I'd received, crumpled in her fist. Behind her, two more figures approached, friends of hers, laughing nervously, pretending this was just some urban legend thrill. One of them, a tall guy with a flashlight, pointed at the arch. "I bet this is one of those viral haunted attractions. You know, hidden camera stuff." I almost hoped he was right. We crossed under the arch together. The moment my foot hit the packed dirt path, the night changed. The wind died, the crickets stopped, the corn husks around us tightened, like the stalks themselves were listening. And somewhere far ahead, a lantern flickered on, though I couldn't see anyone holding it. We followed the path deeper into the maze, the walls narrowing around us. The deeper we went, the quieter everything became. Then I saw something etched into the dirt beneath my boots. A spiral, the same spiral from the flyer, only this time it wasn't drawn. It was burned into the earth. A low whisper slipped through the maze, like wind, but sharper. I couldn't tell if it was outside of me or inside my head. Once inside, the maze decides, and then the entrance disappeared behind us. Where the arch once stood, there was only wall. The instant I turned to where the entrance should have been, My chest locked tight. The arch! The open road! Everything was gone. In its place was a wall of corn, dense and twisted, its stalks impossibly close together, like it had grown in an instant. I swallowed hard. That wasn't there before. Cass lifted her flashlight, its narrow beam cutting through the darkness, but the wall absorbed the light like it was swallowing it. Maybe we took a wrong turn, she said, though she didn't sound convinced. You can't take a wrong turn in a straight path, I muttered. Behind us, the two guys, Ben and Tyler, were still joking to keep the fear away. This is part of the show, man, Ben said. Classic maze scare tactics. Lock you in, spook you out. Maybe a guy in a mask pops up later. Viral content, he laughed. But it was the kind of laugh people use when they're not sure if they're safe. The ground shifted beneath my boots, just slightly, like something under the soil exhaled. The lantern ahead of us flickered again, casting a faint circle of yellow light around an intersection in the maze. A fork, left or right. Cass took a cautious step forward, sweeping her light along the edges of the stalks. They're too close together, she whispered. Corn doesn't grow like this. It's like it's woven. She was right. The stalks were tangled together in unnatural braids, thick and veined, like they'd grown with intention. Like they were alive, Tyler snorted. Okay, seriously. You guys are getting way too into this. It's a Halloween maze. You know, haunted house rules. Somebody pops out, we scream, we laugh, we go home. I looked him in the eye. Then why is the entrance gone? His mouth opened, but no sound came out. For the first time since we got here, he didn't have a comeback. We reached the fork. Two paths, both identical. But I noticed something. The left path smelled faintly of something sweet, like rotting fruit. The right smelled like wet soil. A sound drifted down from the left. A distant, soft humming. Cass turned to me. Do you hear that? I nodded slowly. Ben grinned. We're going left. Ghost songs? That's got to be part of the act. Before I could object, he stepped into the left path, flashlight bobbing in the darkness. Tyler followed him, shaking his head like it was no big deal. Cass and I exchanged a look. Neither of us wanted to follow, but the alternative was being alone. We stepped into the left path. The further we walked, the narrower it became. At one point, the corn leaned inward, forcing us to walk in single file. The humming grew louder, low and rhythmic, like a lullaby sung through cracked lips. Ben's flashlight flickered. Then it went out, yo! What the hell? Ben muttered, smacking the flashlight against his palm. Tyler laughed nervously. Cheap batteries, man. Told you not to buy the dollar store ones. But then Cass's light dimmed too. And that's when I realized the darkness wasn't taking the light. It was eating it. The air grew colder. I could see my breath in front of me. Even though it was October, not January. Something brushed against my shoulder. Soft, like the edge of fabric. I spun around, but no one was there. The humming turned into a whisper, and it said my name. Evan! I froze. No one here knew my name. Ben turned, about to say something, when his face went pale. Dude, behind you. I whipped around. A figure stood just beyond the light. Not in the maze path, in the corn itself. Its shape was tall and thin, draped in something tattered and dark. Its head was tilted at a wrong angle, too far to the left, like a broken marionette. The corn behind it shifted, not like wind, like something crawling through it. Move! Cass hissed. We bolted forward down the path, our boots crunching the dry soil. The whisper followed us, wrapping around our ears like hands. The path curved sharply to the right, and then we burst into a clearing. I stumbled to a stop, chest heaving. It was a circle of flattened corn, maybe 20 feet wide. In the middle stood a scarecrow, but it wasn't like any scarecrow I'd seen before. Its head was wrapped in burlap, but beneath the fabric, something moved. Slowly. The humming came from inside it. Ben started laughing again, but this time it was thin and shaky. Okay, now that's actually pretty cool. Good animatronics, or whatever this is, I didn't answer. Because as I stared at it, the scarecrow's head turned toward me. Smoothly, silently. And the burlap split where its mouth should have been. So welcome back. I had never been here before, but something deep in my chest twisted like I had. The scarecrow's voice wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. It seeped through the cold air like water through cracked wood. Calm, patient, familiar. The burlap mask over its face pulsed softly with each syllable, as if something inside was breathing. Cass gripped my arm so hard I could feel her nails through my sleeve. Did that thing just— Yes, I whispered. Ben gave a shaky laugh. Okay, seriously, someone's controlling this thing. There's probably a speaker under the ground or something. You're not fooling me, spirit of Halloween. But there was no speaker. There were no wires. There was nothing man-made here. The scarecrow stood on a crooked wooden pole, and its arms, stuffed with straw, were tied out like a crucifix. Yet the fabric moved, like muscles shifting under skin. Welcome back, it repeated, this time clearer. The burlap twisted upward into what might have been a grin. Tyler took a cautious step forward, flashlight trembling in his hand. What is this? Some kind of— The scarecrow twitched. Not subtly. Its entire body jerked sideways like it had been struck by a bolt of lightning. Then its head tilted straight up, and it began to sing. A low, slow melody. A lullaby. The same humming we'd heard in the maze, now turning into actual words. The lost will walk. The maze will keep. One for the corn. The rest for the reap. The corn around the clearing rustled. Not from wind, from movement. Something was crawling just out of sight. Dozens of somethings. Cass whispered, "We should run." I nodded, but Ben didn't. He was still staring at the scarecrow like he couldn't look away. His breathing slowed, his pupils dilated, and a strange calm washed over his face. "Ben," I hissed. He didn't answer. He just walked toward it. "Ben!" Cass grabbed his arm, but he yanked it free with unnatural strength. The singing grew louder the closer he got. Then, without warning, the ground beneath the scarecrow split open. Just a thin crack at first, then wider. Dark soil crumbled into something deeper, blacker, something like a mouth. A faint, sweet rot rose from it, like the smell of fruit left in the sun too long. Ben stepped to the edge, leaning forward as if something was pulling him. His lips moved silently, as if whispering the song back to it. "Stop him!" Cass shouted. Tyler lunged forward and grabbed Ben's jacket. But before either of them could pull away, the scarecrow's burlap hand snapped loose from the post. It grabbed Tyler's wrist. "I swear to God!" I heard bones crunch. Tyler screamed, dropping his flashlight, and the beam spun wildly across the clearing, catching glimpses of the corn. In that flash, I saw them. Pale faces pressed between the stalks, eyes black as soil. Dozens of them! I jumped forward and slammed into Ben, knocking him away from the hole. We fell hard, dirt and broken stalks flying everywhere. Cass dragged Tyler backward, his arm hanging at a sick angle, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The scarecrow leaned down off the post, its body bending in ways that should have been impossible. The burlap stretched. The song turned into a whisper. Once chosen, never returned. Then the ground beneath it snapped shut. Just like that, no hole, no seam. The scarecrow was upright again, arms stretched wide as if nothing had happened. Ben stared at it, pale, trembling. I wasn't moving. It moved me. Cass didn't speak. She wrapped Tyler's arm with her scarf, her hands shaking. His wrist was swelling fast, purple and raw. "We need to get out of here," I said. Ben whipped around. "Yeah? And go where? The entrance is gone!" But then I noticed something. A thin path at the edge of the clearing. A new one that hadn't been there before. The corn shifts itself, as if it wants us to keep going. I helped Cass lift Tyler to his feet, his face twisted in pain. Ben stared at the scarecrow a second longer before stumbling after us. As soon as we stepped onto the new path, the lantern behind us went out. Total darkness swallowed the clearing. And then the singing followed us, no longer from one direction, from everywhere. We walked fast, nearly dragging Tyler between us. The corn pressed closer than before, the stalks brushing our shoulders, our faces. Sometimes they felt like hands. Cass whispered, "It's moving with us. Do you feel it?" "It's closing in," I did. Each step forward made the path narrower. The cold was heavier now, the air thick like wet wool. My breath came in short bursts. Behind us, the lullaby twisted into a rhythmic chant. A crowd of voices now, not just one. One for the corn, the rest for the reap. Tyler groaned in pain, muttering through clenched teeth. "We're not getting out of here, are we?" "Don't say that," Cass snapped. "We are," Ben whispered. "No, I think he's right." Up ahead, the path curved sharply again. The air grew hot, suffocatingly hot, and I saw it. A door. A wooden door built into a wall of corn. No frame, no hinges, just standing there like it grew, out of the earth. The chanting grew louder behind us. We didn't have a choice. I grabbed the handle and pulled. The door swung inward, and the maze swallowed us whole. The air changed the second we stepped. Through the door. It was thick, damp, wrong. The scent of fresh soil gave way to something older, like a cellar that hadn't been opened in 100 years. The light behind us dimmed until the door slammed shut with a hollow, wet thud. No handle on the inside. Cass swung her flashlight up, the beam cutting through a tunnel made of twisted roots and packed earth. It wasn't just under the maze, it was inside it. The walls weren't dug by shovels. They looked like they'd been grown. Thick, black roots spiraled down the length of the tunnel like veins, throbbing faintly with a pulse I swear I could feel in my teeth. Ben's voice shook. This isn't part of some haunted attraction." Tyler groaned from behind us, clutching his swollen arm. His skin had turned an ugly gray around the wrist, as if the scarecrow's grip had poisoned him. His breathing was shallow, labored. Cass knelt beside him. "We need to get him out of here. He's burning up." "There is no out," Ben snapped. His voice cracked at the edges. "We're underground. We're in some kind of shut up," I hissed. Because somewhere ahead of us, something was breathing. Slow, steady, wet, like a giant animal just beyond the dark. Cass swung the light forward. The tunnel curved into a chamber, an underground room carved directly beneath the cornfield. The walls here were worse, alive. The roots were braided together into shapes. Figures, human figures. Dozens of faces pressed outward from the roots, frozen in silent screams, their mouths half open as if they'd been swallowed by the walls. Some were missing eyes. Some still had hair, tangled and stuck in the vines. Tyler whimpered. "Oh, God!" Ben stumbled back, nearly slipping in the damp soil. Those are people. They're not people anymore," Cass whispered. Her voice sounded small in that chamber, swallowed by the weight of the air. Then we heard it. A creaking sound, like wood bending under pressure. At the center of the chamber stood something tall and thin. A wooden altar made of broken fence posts and rusted farm tools, lashed together with what looked like corn husks, and hanging above it, suspended by a network of roots, was a lantern, flickering with a sickly yellow flame. Beneath the lantern was a shape. Human. Or at least, it had been once a scarecrow, but this one was different from the one in the clearing. Its burlap mask had been ripped open, revealing a pale, shriveled face beneath. A real face. Its lips were sewn shut with twine. Its eyes were open, and they were moving. Cass backed away, slowly. That's a person," The figure's chest rose, ever so slightly. It was breathing, and then I saw the spiral, carved into its forehead, the same spiral from the flyer. Ben started to panic, voice climbing high. "We need to get the hell out of here." "We need— Ben!" I hissed. Look, the faces on the wall. They'd started to move. Slow at first, twitching lips, shifting eyes. Then their mouths opened wide in silent gasps, as if they were trying to scream, but the soil was choking the sound. The lantern flickered. The air grew thick with the smell of rot and copper. And then a whisper filled the chamber, not from one direction, but from every inch of the walls. "The corn keeps what it's owed." Cass held Tyler close. He was shivering violently now, his skin clammy, his eyes glazed. Something was spreading beneath his skin like veins of black ink, crawling up his arm toward his shoulder. His teeth chattered. "It's inside me!" Cass screamed. "Help him!" I looked down the tunnel. I didn't know where it led. I didn't even know if there was a way out. But standing here wasn't an option. Not with whatever was inside Tyler creeping upward. Ben snapped his head around. "Wait, listen," we all froze. Footsteps, soft, bare, coming down the tunnel behind us, slow and steady. Cass's flashlight trembled as she aimed it toward the sound. Shadows flickered against the walls. A figure was approaching, tall, thin, head tilted at an impossible angle. The scarecrow from the clearing. It was following us underground. Cass whispered, "How the hell is it moving?" Ben grabbed a jagged piece of the altar like a weapon, his breath ragged. "I'm not dying down here." The scarecrow stopped just inside the tunnel entrance. Its burlap face was tilted toward us, though I couldn't see its eyes. It didn't lunge. It just watched, and then it lifted its hand slowly, gently. It pointed, not at me, not at Cass, not even at Ben, at Tyler. Tyler convulsed, his back arched, his jaw clenched, and a thick black liquid began seeping from the cracks in his skin. The faces on the wall opened their mouths wider, and their whispers became a chant. One for the corn, the rest for the reap. I grabbed Cass's wrist. "We have to go!" But Tyler, "Now!" We ran. Ben swung the makeshift weapon behind us, slamming it against the scarecrow's head. It connected with a wet crack. But the scarecrow didn't fall. It just tilted its head further, as if smiling. We bolted down the tunnel, the roots scraping our arms as we pushed through. Tyler's screams echoed behind us, sharp and short. And then they stopped. Cass stumbled, choking on a sob. I didn't look back. A faint light appeared ahead. Orange, flickering like fire. The tunnel widened again into another chamber. This one wasn't like the last. It was round, with a spiral carved deep into the floor. A spiral identical to the one on the flyers, and at the center of that spiral lay something glistening in the dirt. A pile of old invitations. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. One night only. Entry is free. Exit is not guaranteed. Ben kicked one away, his breath ragged. This isn't a maze. It's a trap. It's been bringing people here for years, and just as he said it, the door behind us slammed shut. The sound of that door slamming was like a gunshot, loud, final. Cass's scream echoed through the chamber and bounced off the walls like it was mocking us. The flickering orange light above us pulsed brighter, revealing the spiral carved into the floor in jagged, shallow cuts. And then I realized something that made my stomach drop. This wasn't just any spiral. The carvings were fresh. The soil was still moist around the edges. Someone, or something, had made it recently. Ben paced in the corner of the chamber, eyes wide, fingers pulling at his hair. "We're not supposed to be here. We're not supposed to be here." "Calm down," I hissed. "Calm down." His voice cracked. "Tyler's dead. That thing's following us. And this—" He jabbed a finger toward the spiral. "This is a graveyard." Cass stood silent, staring at the floor. Not crying, not blinking, just staring. Her hands were shaking so badly that the flashlight she held made the walls dance with shadows. Then, slowly, she whispered, "This place was built for it." I turned toward her. "What?" She crouched down, her fingers brushing over the spiral's grooves. "The legend. The spiral of the lost. It wasn't just a story. It was a ritual. Every year, someone disappears into the maze. That's the harvest." Before I could respond, the chamber floor shuddered. At first, I thought it was an earthquake, but the spiral, those shallow grooves in the soil, began to fill. Something thick and dark bubbled up from underneath. Ben gagged. "What the hell is that?" The liquid wasn't water. It was too heavy, too slow. It smelled like soil and blood, like something left to rot underground. The spiral filled quickly, reaching the center, and then it stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the chanting started again, faint at first, but it grew louder and louder, surrounding us like walls closing in. "One for the corn, the rest for the reap. One for the corn, the rest for the reap." Cass backed toward me, clutching my arm. "It's coming back," she whispered. I swallowed hard. It never left. Something rose out of the center of the spiral. It wasn't a scarecrow. Not exactly. This thing was taller, easily 7 feet. Its body was made of knotted roots, braided together like muscle. Its face was human, or maybe many human faces stretched across one skull, lips sewn shut, eyes black as the soil beneath us. It wore a crown of dried corn husks. Cass let out a sharp breath. "The Harvest Man." The Harvest Man tilted its head at us, its neck creaking like old wood. One of its hands reached down and touched the spiral, dragging long, root-like fingers through the dark liquid. The chanting around us stopped. Then, in a voice that sounded like hundreds of mouths whispering together, it spoke. "The maze remembers." Ben stumbled backward, hitting the wall. "No! No! No!" The figure's head snapped toward him with a sound like cracking branches. Its arms stretched far beyond what it should have been able to, roots unfurling like tendrils. It reached for Ben. "Run!" I hissed. We spun and slammed against the door we'd come through, but there was nothing there anymore, just a wall of moving roots. They twisted like they were alive, pulsing, sealing the way shut. Ben screamed, swinging the rusted metal shard he'd taken from the altar. He hacked at the roots, but every cut healed itself. The vines grew back faster than he could tear them. The Harvest Man took another step forward. Its feet didn't make a sound. It glided. Cass dragged me toward the far end of the chamber where a crack in the wall, barely big enough for one person, gaped like a narrow throat. She shoved me toward it. "Evan, go!" "What about you?" "Go." I hesitated for half a second, then dropped to my stomach and crawled into the crack. The roots scratched my back as if trying to grab me. Cass followed behind me, breathing hard, whispering something under her breath that sounded like a prayer. Behind us, Ben screamed. It wasn't a quick scream. It was the kind that tears through you. High, desperate, raw. Cass squeezed her eyes shut as we crawled deeper. "Don't stop. Don't look back." But I did. Just a glimpse. The Harvest Man's hand wrapped around Ben's neck like a rope tightening on a post. His feet left the ground. His body convulsed as the roots slid beneath his skin, pulling him apart from the inside. His face turned white, then gray, then something else entirely. And then the maze took him. The chamber shook again. Dust rained down from above. Cass and I forced our way deeper into the crack, the tunnel sloping downward. It wasn't a normal tunnel anymore. The soil here was warm, almost breathing. It was growing around us. "Evan," Cass whispered, choking on tears. "We're not getting out." "Yes, we are," I lied. The tunnel opened suddenly into another cavern, smaller, rounder, lit only by the faint glow of phosphorescent roots. The spiral symbol was carved again into the dirt floor, but smaller this time, and a single lantern hung in the center. The same lantern from the entrance. Cass whispered, "This isn't a maze." I turned toward her slowly. "What?" "It's a cycle." The light flickered. And from behind us, footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. The harvest man was coming. The sound of those footsteps slithering through the tunnel behind us didn't feel human. They didn't echo, they crawled. Each step sounded wet, like the earth itself was breathing the harvest man forward. Cass's hands were trembling so badly that the flashlight slipped from her fingers and cracked on the ground. The beam swung in a shaky arc across the small cavern, landing on the spiral carved into the dirt floor. That spiral again. Always the same. The lantern hanging above it swayed gently, though there was no wind. Its faint yellow light cast twisted shadows on the walls, shadows that looked like reaching hands. Cass pressed her back to the damp wall, chest heaving. "Evan," she whispered, her voice shaking, "we're going in circles. It's leading us where it wants us to go." "It's not a maze," I said quietly. "It's a trap." The tunnel behind us pulsed with a low groan. Then came the whisper, not from the harvest man this time, but from the walls themselves. "One for the corn, the rest for the reap." Cass's face went pale. She clutched my sleeve so tightly it hurt. "That's what it said to Ben, and Tyler. It's going to take one of us." My mouth went dry. "No, we're not playing its game." But the lantern above us flickered, and on the far wall, the roots began to unravel themselves, curling away like a curtain being drawn back. A doorway appeared, not wooden like before, but made entirely of soil, framed by moving vines that writhed like snakes. Cass whispered, "Evan, look." Inside that doorway was light, not lantern light. Something softer, pale, like moonlight breaking through fog. For the first time since entering the maze, it didn't feel like a trap. It felt inviting. That's what scared me most. Cass took a hesitant step toward it. "This could be a way out. Or another room like the last one," I said. She didn't turn around. "We don't have time to think." The harvest man's footsteps were louder now, closer. The tunnel behind us wasn't just echoing anymore. The roots along the floor were sliding forward, pulling something with them. Cass bolted toward the doorway, disappearing into the pale light before I could stop her. My heartbeat was in my throat. I had two choices: stay here and face the thing, or follow her into whatever waited on the other side. I ran. The light was blinding at first. Then it softened, revealing a field. Not a normal field. This one was underground, but somehow wide open. Rows and rows of corn, taller than anything I'd ever seen, stretched endlessly into darkness. A thin mist curled low to the ground, glowing faintly with the same pale light. And in the center of it all, an altar, not like the small one earlier. This one was massive, built from bones and dried husks, decorated with carved symbols that matched the spiral exactly. At its top hung dozens of burlap masks, swaying gently as if something invisible was brushing past them. Cass stood a few feet ahead of me, frozen. "What is this?" she whispered. I stepped up beside her. The air here was warm, almost too warm, and the smell of sweet rot was so thick I could taste it. Something about this place made the hair on the back of my neck rise. This was where it all ended, or began. The corn behind us shifted, and the whispering grew louder. Dozens of voices, hundreds maybe. The corn keeps what it's owed. From the far side of the altar, the harvest man emerged. Slowly, gracefully. The pale faces that made up its head turned toward us one by one. Its root fingers dragged along the soil, leaving trails that oozed black liquid. Cass whispered, "Evan, run!" But I didn't. Because the altar wasn't just decoration. Two figures were tied to it, bodies wrapped in vines, their heads lolling weakly. One was Ben. His eyes were open but glassy, his chest rising with shallow, uneven breaths. The other, I didn't recognize, but she was wearing modern clothes. Someone else the maze had taken before us. Cass rushed forward, but I grabbed her arm. "Wait!" The harvestman raised one of its long, root-woven arms. The chanting stopped. A silence heavier than any sound fell over the field. Then it pointed to Cass. I felt it then. This wasn't random. It wanted someone. It was waiting for an offering. Cass stiffened as if something had gripped her. Her eyes went wide, her breath quick and shallow. I can't move," she whispered. The ground beneath the altar split open, revealing a pit lined with twisting roots that writhed like worms in the dark. From inside that pit came a sound I can't forget. Wet, deep, like 1,000 throats inhaling at once. The harvestman spoke, and its voice was every voice from the walls, from the corn, from the dead. "One must stay, one may leave." "No," I whispered. "No, that's not happening." Cass's head jerked toward me, eyes filling with tears. "Evan, if it's me, don't say it." She kept talking anyway. "If it's me, run. Don't let it keep you too." The harvestman tilted its head. Slowly, it lowered its arm, pointing to the pit, then back to her. The meaning was clear. Sacrifice one. The other walks free. My mind was spinning, heartbeat pounding in my ears. Ben was still breathing on the altar, his chest jerking with each shallow inhale. Cass's body was trembling, her feet rooted to the ground by something I couldn't see. I could hear my father's voice in my head. Years ago, when I was a kid wandering these fields at night, "If you ever feel the corn watching, you leave. Don't turn back. Don't look at it. Just leave." But I wasn't that boy anymore, and Cass wasn't someone I could just abandon. The harvestman stepped closer. Its face leaned down until the rows of stitched lips were inches from us. "Choose." I reached for Cass's hand, but it was ice cold. Her pupils dilated as she whispered, "Evan, whatever happens, don't let it take you." Then she did something I didn't expect. She stepped forward, toward the pit. "Cass, no!" I shouted. The harvestman raised its head like a conductor welcoming the final note. The roots around the pit parted, making space for her. She took one more step, tears streaking down her face, her body moving like something else was controlling it. The ground around us began to tremble. The corn bent inward, leaning toward the altar, the whispering turning into a low, hungry hum. But just before Cass reached the edge of the pit, she stopped, and her lips curled into something between a sob and a smile. "Not yet!" She yanked a rusted lantern pole from the ground and swung it upward, slamming it directly into the harvestman's face. The sound that came from it wasn't a scream. It was every scream at once. The entire field shook. The harvestman reeled back with an unearthly howl, its stitched mouth twisting in unnatural directions. The lantern pole clattered to the ground, still slick with the black, tar-like fluid that oozed from the gash Cass had struck. The entire cornfield shuddered like something alive had been wounded. The stalks leaned inward, whispering violently, their dry leaves hissing like thousands of angry snakes. The pale light dimmed, and the mist began to rise, thick and suffocating. Cass stumbled back into my arms, breathing hard, eyes wide and wild. "Run!" she gasped. "Evan, run!" But the harvestman wasn't done. It didn't bleed like a man. It grew. The black substance spread over its burlap skin, and new faces pushed through the fabric, mouths gasping soundlessly. The spiral carved into the ground beneath the altar started to glow, not gently, but like a furnace igniting. "One must stay!" the creature's voices hissed. "The spiral cannot be broken." "Watch me," I spat back. We sprinted through the field, the corn parting just enough to let us run, but not enough to see where we were going. The maze wanted us to move, but not to leave. I could feel it, like running inside a spinning circle. No matter how fast we went, we ended up near the same altar. Cass panted beside me. "Evan, it's pulling us back." The air was hot now. The ground burned through the soles of my shoes. Behind us, the harvestman's footsteps weren't footsteps anymore. They were like roots tearing through the earth, faster than any human could run. I looked up and saw the sky was gone. Only corn stretching upward into darkness. Then I noticed it. The spiral pattern wasn't just on the ground. It was above us, too. The entire maze was one massive ritual circle, and we were trapped in its center like flies in a web. Cass clutched my arm, voice trembling. "We can't outrun it." "No," I said, "but we can break it." She stared at me like I'd lost it. "Break what?" "This thing is older than us. Older than everything." "Then we hit it where it hurts." I glanced back toward the altar in the distance. The glowing spiral was brighter now, pulsing like a heart. And at the center, the black pit gaped wider than before. Ben was still tied up, barely breathing. Cass followed my gaze and shook her head. "You can't. Evan, that's suicide." "It's the center," I said, voice low but steady. "Everything pulls us back here because it needs the spiral. It's where it gets its power. If we break it, maybe the maze dies with it." The harvestman's howl cut through the air, a chorus of grief and rage, closer than ever. Cass squeezed her eyes shut. "Then we do it together." We charged toward the altar. The ground shifted beneath us like it didn't want to let us move forward. The soil felt soft, sucking at our shoes like mud, and roots coiled up around our ankles, trying to drag us down. Cass grabbed the broken lantern pole and stabbed at them, freeing my leg. I stomped on another, ignoring the way it pulsed like a living vein. The harvestman emerged from the corn as we reached the clearing. It was bigger now, easily 12 feet tall, its body a writhing mass of faces and vines. The lantern light cast jagged shadows over its stitched grin. Ben let out a weak, ragged sound, somewhere between a moan and a plea. Cass ran to him, trying to untangle the vines holding him down. I sprinted to the spiral itself. Up close, it wasn't carved into the ground. It was grown into it. Thick black roots formed the spiral, pulsating faintly. Warm. Alive. "The spiral holds the field," the harvestman bellowed, every voice layered into a storm. "The field holds you." Not anymore. I lifted the lantern pole with both hands and drove it into the heart of the spiral. The ground screamed. Not figuratively. It actually screamed. The spiral throbbed under the impact. A fissure of blinding light split through the lines, and the corn around us bent backward violently, as if hit by a gust of hurricane wind. The harvestman let out a shriek so loud it rattled my bones. But it wasn't broken yet. Cass had freed Ben, dragging his limp body away from the altar. "Evan!" she shouted over the roar. "It's fighting back!" I struck again. And again. The pole cracked, splinters flying. The ground pulsed like a living heart under my feet. Then the harvestman lunged. Its root arms slammed into me, knocking me backward. I hit the dirt so hard I saw stars. The creature towered over me, its stitched mouth opening wider than should have been possible. The faces on its body moved, mouthing silent screams. Some of them looked human. Some of them looked familiar. Cass rushed forward, screaming my name. The harvestman's arm descended. But Cass leapt between us, driving the broken lantern pole deep into its chest. The creature convulsed. Its body twisted, vines flailing like a nest of snakes. She screamed as black liquid splattered across her, burning her skin, but she didn't let go. I dragged myself to my feet, grabbed what was left of the pole, and with every ounce of strength I had left, I slammed it into the center of the spiral one final time. The world went white. The maze erupted. The spiral split apart with a sound like a tree being ripped in half. The cornfields caught fire, not with flame, but with light. The mist turned into a cyclone, tearing upward into the darkness. The harvestman fell to its knees, its faces screaming and melting back into burlap and soil. Cass stumbled, coughing, but didn't let go of Ben. The spiral bled light, brighter and brighter until the entire world felt like it was tearing open. Then everything went silent. When the light faded, I wasn't sure what I was looking at. The field was still, no whispering, no moving stalks, just a blackened spiral on the ground, steaming like something had been burned out of existence. The harvestman lay in the dirt, motionless, its body already crumbling into roots and dust. Cass knelt beside Ben, whispering his name. He was breathing. Weak, but alive. We'd done it. But before I could even let that relief settle, something moved beneath the cracked spiral. A hand, small, human. It clawed up through the dirt, pale and slick. Another followed. Then a face emerged. A girl's face, blank-eyed, like something buried long ago was trying to crawl free. Cass gasped. "Evan, what is that?" The ground split wider. Dozens of hands pushed through. Not vines this time. People. Or what used to be people. Victims. Offerings. The maze wasn't dead. It was waking up. Two figures were tied to it, bodies wrapped in vines, their heads lolling weakly. One was Ben. His eyes were open but glassy, his chest rising with shallow, uneven breaths. The other, I didn't recognize, but she was wearing modern clothes, someone else the maze had taken before us. Cass rushed forward, but I grabbed her arm. "Wait!" The harvestman raised one of its long, root-woven arms. The chanting stopped. A silence heavier than any sound fell over the field. Then it pointed to Cass. I felt it then. This wasn't random. It wanted someone. It was waiting for an offering. Cass stiffened as if something had gripped her. Her eyes went wide, her breath quick and shallow. I can't move," she whispered. The ground beneath the altar split open, revealing a pit lined with twisting roots that writhed like worms in the dark. From inside that pit came a sound I can't forget. Wet, deep, like 1,000 throats inhaling at once. The harvestman spoke, and its voice was every voice from the walls, from the corn, from the dead. "One must stay. One may leave." "No," I whispered. "No, that's not happening." Cass's head jerked toward me, eyes filling with tears. "Evan, if it's me—" "Don't say it." She kept talking anyway. "If it's me, run. Don't let it keep you too." The harvestman tilted its head. Slowly, it lowered its arm, pointing to the pit, then back to her. The meaning was clear. Sacrifice one. The other walks free. My mind was spinning, heartbeat pounding in my ears. Ben was still breathing on the altar, his chest jerking with each shallow inhale. Cass's body was trembling, her feet rooted to the ground by something I couldn't see. I could hear my father's voice in my head. Years ago, when I was a kid wandering these fields at night, "If you ever feel the corn watching, you leave. Don't turn back. Don't look at it. Just leave." But I wasn't that boy anymore, and Cass wasn't someone I could just abandon. The harvestman stepped closer. Its face leaned down until the rows of stitched lips were inches from us. "Choose." I reached for Cass's hand, but it was ice cold. Her pupils dilated as she whispered, "Evan, whatever happens, don't let it take you." Then she did something I didn't expect. She stepped forward, toward the pit. "Cass, no!" I shouted. The harvestman raised its head like a conductor welcoming the final note. The roots around the pit parted, making space for her. She took one more step, tears streaking down her face, her body moving like something else was controlling it. The ground around us began to tremble. The corn bent inward, leaning toward the altar, the whispering turning into a low, hungry hum. But just before Cass reached the edge of the pit, she stopped, and her lips curled into something between a sob and a smile. Not yet. She yanked a rusted lantern pole from the ground and swung it upward, slamming it directly into the harvest man's face. The sound that came from it wasn't a scream. It was every scream at once. The entire field shook. The harvest man reeled back with an unearthly howl, its stitched mouth twisting in unnatural directions. The lantern pole clattered to the ground, still slick with the black, tar-like fluid that oozed from the gash Cass had struck. The entire cornfield shuddered like something alive had been wounded. The stalks leaned inward, whispering violently, their dry leaves hissing like thousands of angry snakes. The pale light dimmed, and the mist began to rise, thick and suffocating. Cass stumbled back into my arms, breathing hard, eyes wide and wild. "Run!" she gasped. "Evan, run!" But the harvest man wasn't done. It didn't bleed like a man. It grew. The black substance spread over its burlap skin, and new faces pushed through the fabric, mouths gasping soundlessly. The spiral carved into the ground beneath the altar started to glow. Not gently, but like a furnace igniting. "One must stay!" the creature's voices hissed. "The spiral cannot be broken." "Watch me," I spat back. We sprinted through the field, the corn parting just enough to let us run, but not enough to see where we were going. The maze wanted us to move, but not to leave. I could feel it. Like running inside a spinning circle, no matter how fast we went, we ended up near the same altar. Cass panted beside me. "Evan, it's pulling us back." The air was hot now. The ground burned through the soles of my shoes. Behind us, the harvest man's footsteps weren't footsteps anymore. They were like roots tearing through the earth, faster than any human could run. I looked up and saw the sky was gone. Only corn, stretching upward into darkness. Then I noticed it. The spiral pattern wasn't just on the ground. It was above us too. The entire maze was one massive ritual circle, and we were trapped in its center like flies in a web. Cass clutched my arm, voice trembling. "We can't outrun it." "No," I said. "But we can break it." She stared at me like I'd lost it. "Break what? This thing is older than us, older than everything." "Then we hit it where it hurts." I glanced back toward the altar in the distance. The glowing spiral was brighter now, pulsing like a heart, and at the center, the black pit gaped wider than before. Ben was still tied up, barely breathing. Cass followed my gaze and shook her head. "You can't! Evan, that's suicide!" "It's the center," I said, voice low but steady. "Everything pulls us back here because it needs the spiral. It's where it gets its power. If we break it, maybe the maze dies with it." The harvest man's howl cut through the air, a chorus of grief and rage, closer than ever. Cass squeezed her eyes shut. "Then we do it together." We charged toward the altar. The ground shifted beneath us like it didn't want to let us move forward. The soil felt soft, sucking at our shoes like mud, and roots coiled up around our ankles, trying to drag us down. Cass grabbed the broken lantern pole and stabbed at them, freeing my leg. I stomped on another, ignoring the way it pulsed like a living vein. The harvest man emerged from the corn as we reached the clearing. It was bigger now, easily 12 feet tall, its body a writhing mass of faces and vines. The lantern light cast jagged shadows over its stitched grin. Ben let out a weak, ragged sound, somewhere between a moan and a plea. Cass ran to him, trying to untangle the vines holding him down. I sprinted to the spiral itself. Up close, it wasn't carved into the ground. It was grown into it. Thick black roots formed the spiral, pulsating faintly. Warm. Alive. "The spiral holds the field," the harvest man bellowed, every voice layered into a storm. The field holds you. Not anymore. I lifted the lantern pole with both hands and drove it into the heart of the spiral. The ground screamed. Not figuratively. It actually screamed. The spiral throbbed under the impact. A fissure of blinding light split through the lines, and the corn around us bent backward violently, as if hit by a gust of hurricane wind. The harvestman let out a shriek so loud it rattled my bones, but it wasn't broken yet. Cass had freed Ben, dragging his limp body away from the altar. "Evan!" she shouted over the roar. "It's fighting back!" I struck again. And again? The pole cracked, splinters flying. The ground pulsed like a living heart under my feet. Then the harvestman lunged. Its root arms slammed into me, knocking me backward. I hit the dirt so hard I saw stars. The creature towered over me, its stitched mouth opening wider than should have been possible. The faces on its body moved, mouthing silent screams. Some of them looked human. Some of them looked familiar. Cass rushed forward, screaming my name. The harvestman's arm descended. But Cass leapt between us, driving the broken lantern pole deep into its chest. The creature convulsed. Its body twisted, vines flailing like a nest of snakes. She screamed as black liquid splattered across her, burning her skin. But she didn't let go. I dragged myself to my feet, grabbed what was left of the pole, and with every ounce of strength I had left, I slammed it into the center of the spiral one final time. The world went white. The maze erupted. The spiral split apart with a sound like a tree being ripped in half. The cornfields caught fire, not with flame, but with light. The mist turned into a cyclone, tearing upward into the darkness. The harvestman fell to its knees, its faces screaming and melting back into burlap and soil. Cass stumbled, coughing, but didn't let go of Ben. The spiral bled light, brighter and brighter, until the entire world felt like it was tearing open. Then, everything went silent. When the light faded, I wasn't sure what I was looking at. The field was still. No whispering, no moving stalks. Just a blackened spiral on the ground, steaming like something had been burned out of existence. The harvestman lay in the dirt, motionless, its body already crumbling into roots and dust. Cass knelt beside Ben, whispering his name. He was breathing, weak, but alive. We'd done it. But before I could even let that relief settle, something moved beneath the cracked spiral. A hand, small, human. It clawed up through the dirt, pale and slick. Another followed. Then a face emerged, a girl's face, blank-eyed, like something buried long ago was trying to crawl free. Cass gasped. "Evan, what is that?" The ground split wider. Dozens of hands pushed through. Not vines this time. People. Or what used to be people. Victims. Offerings. The maze wasn't dead. It was waking up. The sound of fingers clawing through dirt is something I'll never forget. It wasn't loud at first, just a soft scratching, like nails dragging across the inside of a coffin. But then the ground began to tremble, and the scratching turned into pounding. All around the cracked spiral, pale hands burst upward, breaking through the soil like it was paper. Fingers, thin, splintered, some missing nails, grasped at the air. And then came the faces, eyes clouded like river glass, skin gray and stretched. They weren't just rising, they were crawling toward us. Cass stumbled backward, clutching Ben's limp body to her chest. "Evan, what are they?" "They're the ones the maze kept," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Every offering, every person who never came back." The harvestman's body, or what was left of it, lay at the edge of the spiral. Its burlap skin had torn open, and its roots were unraveling like a puppet's strings cut loose. But something about its stillness terrified me more than when it moved. The light from the spiral flickered weakly now, No longer a roaring blaze, but a dying heartbeat. But that heartbeat was feeding something. The ground split further. A voice like rusted metal scraping against stone hissed out of the earth. The field does not forgive. The dead things around us moved in unison. Their heads snapped toward us, and their mouths opened wide, soundlessly at first. Then came the moaning. It wasn't a scream. It was hunger. Cass tightened her grip on Ben, who let out a faint groan. "He's alive, Evan," she said breathlessly. "But he can't run." I scanned the clearing. The cornfield was still twisted and broken from the spiral's collapse. But beyond the jagged edges of the maze, I saw something I hadn't seen since entering. Sky. A pale sliver of moonlight through the torn stalks. The maze wasn't completely sealed anymore. "There," I pointed. "We can make it." Cass shook her head. "Not if they reach us first." The crawling figures were getting closer, dozens of them, dragging themselves across the dirt like something out of a mass grave. Some wore rotting clothes that looked decades old. Others still had Halloween costumes on, jack-o'-lantern masks, farmer outfits, children's costumes. This maze had been feeding for a long, long time. I grabbed a broken piece of lantern pole from the ground, my knuckles tightening around it. We don't need to fight them all. We just need to make it to that opening. Cass's lip trembled, but she nodded. Then we moved together. We started toward the sliver of sky. I led, and she followed with Ben's arms slung over her shoulders. His breathing was shallow but steady. Each step felt like wading through water thick as tar. The ground didn't want to let us leave. The pale hands reached for us, grabbing at our ankles, our clothes, our legs. One clawed at my boot, its grip ice cold. I kicked it away and kept going. But for every one that fell back, 3 more rose. The whispering started again. Only this time, it wasn't just in the air. It was inside my head. "Stay, stay, stay with us." My vision blurred for a second, and I saw something. Flashes of faces, all staring up at the sky they never reached. Their lips moved, mouthing the same word over and over. "Don't leave us!" Cass screamed. A corpse had grabbed her wrist, its jaw hanging loosely as it tried to pull her down. I slammed the pole into its face. The skull cracked like old porcelain, and it fell away, still clawing even without its jaw. "Keep moving," I shouted. We reached the edge of the spiral. I looked down one last time. The heart of the maze was collapsing. The harvest man's body was almost gone, melting into the ground. But something was moving beneath where it lay. Something bigger. The dead weren't escaping the maze. They were being called to something. Then the voice came again, deeper, closer. "The harvest is not over." The ground split open. A shockwave knocked us all to the ground. Ben hit the dirt hard, but I scrambled up and grabbed him by the shoulders. Cass pulled herself up beside me, and that's when we saw it. Where the spiral once was, a massive shape began to rise. It was not the harvest man. It was what the harvest man was made from. Roots as thick as tree trunks tore their way out of the earth. They weren't just growing, they were forming something, a shape, a body. Dozens of burlap faces merged into one. A grotesque mound of stitched skin stretched over the roots like a shroud. This was the true harvest, the maze's god. It opened a mouth that spanned the length of its chest. The whispering stopped, the wind stilled, and in the silence it spoke in a single voice that vibrated through the ground. "Return what is mine." The crawling corpses turned their heads toward us as one. No more moaning, no more hunger. Just obedience. They were its army. Cass whispered, "Evan, we can't outrun that." I stared at the sliver of sky. So close. Then at the monster. So massive. "We're not outrunning it," I said slowly. "We're bringing it down." Cass blinked. "What?" "The lantern," I said, looking around. All this maze, it was built around fire, ritual, sacrifice. It feeds on the spiral. If we burn it, we burn the whole damn thing. Cass looked terrified. But her fear wasn't the kind that paralyzes. It was the kind that decides. She reached down and grabbed the broken lantern pole from the dirt. I knelt beside Ben, pulling the last working oil lantern from the ground near the altar. Its glass was cracked, but the flame still burned weakly inside. "We don't get a second chance," I whispered. Cass's hand brushed mine. "Then let's end it." The corpses charged. Not crawling anymore. Running. The ground shook with their weight as they rushed toward us. The towering root creature bellowed, vines whipping out like whips, smashing into the dirt around us. Cass and I ran, not away from it, but toward the altar, toward the heart of everything. I lit the end of the lantern pole and it caught fast, fire licking up the shaft. Cass sprinted beside me, dodging a swinging vine that shattered the ground inches from her head. "Now or never," she screamed. I hurled the burning pole into the cracked spiral. The roots shrieked. "Yes," shrieked. The fire spread unnaturally fast, racing through the black veins like a fuse through dynamite. The corpses screamed as flame licked up through the ground beneath them. Some burst into ash immediately. Others kept coming, even as they burned. The harvest god let out a roar that shook the field. Its face twisted, stretching, its eyes burning bright like molten coals. The entire maze caught fire. We dragged Ben toward the opening as everything behind us burned. The corn shriveled into black stalks, the mist turned to ash, and the faces on the harvest god melted one by one. The whispering finally turned to screaming. Cass stumbled through the final row of corn, pulling Ben with her. I followed, choking on smoke, lungs burning. And then, just like that, we were outside. Cold night air hit my face like water. Above us was the real sky, the moon, full and pale. Behind us, the cornfield burned with an orange glow that looked like the mouth of hell. Cass collapsed onto the grass, coughing. Ben was still breathing, barely, but alive. I stood there for a moment, staring at the flames devouring the maze. But then I saw it. The harvest god was still standing at the center, burning, watching, and as the fire consumed it, it smiled. The harvest always returns. The ground rumbled beneath my feet. This wasn't over. The night sky above us was clear, black, and cold. But behind us, the burning corn maze wasn't dying quietly. The flames moved with purpose. They climbed in twisting patterns like fingers reaching toward the sky. Even the smoke didn't rise straight. It spiraled, the same way the carved markings on the ground had spiraled. Cass sat on the damp grass, pulling Ben close, trying to keep him awake. He coughed weakly, his skin pale from blood loss and exhaustion. I knelt next to them, heart hammering in my chest. "It's over," she whispered to me, voice trembling. But I couldn't say it back. Because the fire wasn't just fire, it was alive. A low, guttural sound rolled across the field. It wasn't wind. It wasn't the crackle of burning stalks. It was the sound of something deep beneath the soil, still breathing, still waiting. The harvest god was burning at the heart of the maze, its massive, root-woven body collapsing under the flames. Its stitched mouth was stretched wide, teeth made of jagged bone exposed as the fire devoured it. And yet it was smiling. "The harvest is never done," the voice whispered. Not in the air, but inside my skull. I flinched. Cass saw the way I stiffened and grabbed my wrist. "Evan, what is it?" I stared at the burning maze. "It's talking to me," she went pale. "What's it saying?" I forced the words out. "That it isn't over." The cornfield's fire began to bend inward, like a storm pulling toward its center. Sparks twisted upward, forming a glowing spiral in the night sky. It was wrong. Wind doesn't move like that. The ground beneath us thumped, a slow, steady rhythm, a heartbeat. Cass gripped my hand tightly. "We need to get out of here." "We are out," I said. "But it isn't letting us leave." The earth trembled, and that's when I saw them. Figures. All along the tree line, emerging from the darkness like silhouettes. At first I thought they were more of the corpses. But no, these moved differently. Their faces were obscured by burlap masks, the same kind hanging on the altar earlier. Their clothes were tattered, but clean enough to know they were not long dead. These people were alive, and they were watching us. Cass's breath hitched. Who are they? I swallowed. I think they're the ones who keep it going. There were at least 20 of them. Men, women, even children. Each one carried something. Rusted lanterns, corn husks, sickles, carved sigils on their hands. They formed a perfect ring around the burning maze, not approaching us, but making sure we didn't leave. Ben stirred weakly, his voice hoarse. Don't let them! Take me back. I tightened my grip on his shoulder. They won't. But my own voice didn't sound convincing. One of the masked figures stepped forward. He was taller than the rest, with a mask sewn tighter around the edges, blackened at the mouth like it had been singed by fire. He raised an arm, pointing directly at us. The spiral has been broken, he said in a deep, calm voice that somehow carried over the roar of the flames. The field demands balance. Cass's voice cracked. We're not going back in there. You misunderstand, the man said. You already belong to it. Behind him the fire burned higher. The harvest god's charred body collapsed inward. But even in death, something was crawling beneath the ashes. The glowing spiral in the sky spun faster, dragging the smoke into itself. Cass struggled to her feet, keeping Ben behind her. If this is some kind of cult, she spat, you're going to be disappointed. He tilted his head slowly. This is not a cult. This is survival. The harvest has always been here. We don't serve it. We feed it. The others began to hum, a low, droning chant that didn't sound human. Their lanterns flickered in perfect rhythm with the heartbeat beneath the soil. I looked toward the road, far beyond the field. Freedom was there, but so was their circle, tight, unbroken. Evan, Cass whispered, what do we do? I stared at the burning spiral, the cult, the smoldering roots in the ground. The maze was trying to rebuild itself piece by piece. The flames were not destroying it. They were fueling it. If we ran now, it might not even matter. It would just rise again. I clenched my jaw. We ended completely. Cass's eyes widened. How? I reached into my jacket pocket and felt the matches I'd grabbed from the lantern stash earlier. The maze was already on fire. But that was its fire, its ritual. We needed something else, something to turn its own power against it. I pointed to the base of the field, where all the spiral lines had converged before the explosion. There, that's where it's bleeding out. Cass followed my gaze. You mean, finish it, I said. We moved fast. Cass helped. Ben limped toward the old farm truck parked just outside the field's fence line. Likely the cult's. I grabbed a rusted fuel canister sitting beside it. It stank of diesel. Perfect. The cult didn't move to stop us yet. They were chanting louder now, their attention on the burning spiral, waiting for it to rise. But it wasn't rising fast enough. Not if I could help it. I ran back to the base of the field, sloshing the fuel in a wide arc. The flames licked the liquid eagerly, growing wilder, angrier. The cult leader's chant broke. He shouted, "No!" I struck the match and dropped it. The explosion tore through the night like a gunshot. The spiral caught the fire instantly, and the burning maze roared like a living beast. The ground split open, fissures of fire ripping through the soil. The cult screamed, not in pain, but in panic. The harvest god lurched upward from the ashes, half-formed, its melted face twisting. But it wasn't rising like before. It was burning from the inside out. Cass screamed, "Evan, run!" I turned and bolted toward her and Ben, just as the cult broke their formation and ran toward the fire. Some threw themselves into it, chanting. Others fled into the trees, their burlap masks catching embers. Behind us, the maze collapsed. The spiral burned to cinders. The heartbeat beneath the soil grew fainter and fainter until it finally stopped. The night fell silent, completely silent. Cass was on her knees in the dirt, holding Ben, her hair streaked with ash. I fell to my knees beside them, lungs burning, heart pounding. For the first time since stepping into that maze, the air wasn't moving. No whispers, no shifting corn, no presence, just night. Real, quiet night. Cass turned to me, tears streaking her soot-covered face. "Did we do it?" I didn't answer right away. I looked back at what was once the maze. There was nothing left, just a black crater, still smoldering, where the spiral used to be. "I think," I said slowly. "We actually did." But even as I said it, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still listening. Hours later, the flashing red lights of emergency vehicles painted the night. Sirens wailed in the distance as paramedics loaded Ben into an ambulance. Cass sat on the back of a truck, wrapped in a blanket, staring blankly at the burned field. The sheriff asked me questions I barely registered. "How'd the fire start? Were there others with you? Did you see anyone else?" I just shook my head. Because what was I supposed to say? A field made of nightmares tried to keep us forever? A god of roots demanded a sacrifice? They'd never believe it. But as I looked over the field one last time, something made my stomach turn. The soil at the edge of the crater was moving. Not much, just a little shift, like something beneath it had twitched. And on the wind, barely audible, almost not real, I heard it. The harvest always returns. I don't remember how long I stood there, staring at the last row of corn. The night had folded in on itself. No stars, no wind, no life. Just the maze breathing around me, whispering like a living grave. The scarecrow that had once stood silently at the heart of the maze was now gone. In its place, a hole. A gaping, yawning hole in the earth. The soil was black, as if it had been burned. Something deep inside me, something primal, told me not to go closer. But the maze, it pushed. It herded me like cattle. Every cornstalk leaned toward me, like bony fingers urging me forward. I stepped up to the edge of that hole, the earth soft and wet beneath my boots. A sound echoed up from the darkness. It wasn't wind. It was crying. A single, shuddering sob that clawed its way up from below. I leaned over, and I saw her. Emily. Her face was pale, streaked with mud and tears, but her eyes were wrong. They weren't hers anymore. They were the maze's, hollow, hungry. She whispered, "You shouldn't have come." I fell back, heart hammering. "Emily, Emily, I came to find you." She tilted her head, as if confused by my words. And then slowly she raised a hand. The skin on her fingers had grown brittle and cracked, almost like dry corn husks. She didn't climb out of the hole. The hole pulled her up. The ground trembled. Roots, thick, blackened roots, wrapped around her legs and waist like tendrils. They lifted her higher, her hair tangled with the soil, her feet dangling above the hole like a marionette. "You heard it too," she rasped. "The whisper in the field." I shook my head, backing away. But the maze shifted behind me. Every path I'd memorized was gone. There was nowhere to run now, only forward. "The maze doesn't take people," Emily whispered. "It grows them." That's when I saw them. Faces, hundreds of them, pressing out from the corn stalks. Faces of all those who had gone missing over the years. They weren't just lost. They'd become part of it. Flesh melded with stalks, bones twisted into vines, eyes flickering like dying lanterns, and then came the sound. A deep guttural growl, like the land itself was waking up. Emily's voice twisted, layered with dozens of other voices. "It's your turn to feed it." The soil split open. A clawed hand. No, not a hand. A root shot out from the hole and wrapped around my ankle. I screamed, tearing at it, kicking until my heel split open. But another grabbed me, then another. They pulled me down. The last thing I saw was Emily's face smiling. Not sweetly, but like a mask being peeled away. Beneath it was the true thing. The thing that lived in the soil, the maze keeper. The corn above me swayed in a silent rhythm as the earth closed over my head. Darkness, pressure, roots crawling over my skin, the maze breathing into my lungs, and then nothing. I don't know how much time has passed. I'm not sure if I'm still me. Sometimes I hear the wind, or maybe it's my voice echoing through the stalks. People still come. They laugh. They run. They scream. But the maze never lets them leave. And somewhere, deep beneath their feet, I'm waiting. Thanks for watching this terrifying, scary story. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment "end" so that we could understand you were with us till the end. If you've ever had a creepy experience, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your stories, as well as please let us know, where are you watching from? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-chilling tales. Last but not the least, before leaving, please check out the horror story ebook. Link in the description. See you in the next one. Until next time, stay safe and stay out of the shadows. Good night.